Hey, welcome to T-bar ceiling layout. So this is a basic idea, a basic question on the concept on how to calculate T-bar ceilings or anything that has tiles. So it could be tiles on the ground or paneling on the wall, anything where you install pieces and you don't want the edges to end up with a tiny sliver of an inch or something like that. Same with flooring. Let's have a look at the question. So we have a room, it's 17 foot and 6 inches in one direction and 12 foot 3 in the other direction. The joists run across this small dimension, and we want to find out the size of the border tiles. So I went ahead and already drew this out and a little bit nicer than my hand drawing. So I'm drawing out a regular rectangle and I'm putting in the dimensions. So 17 foot 6 and 12 foot 3 in this direction. It says the joists run across the small direction, which is important to note because we want the main T's of our T-bar ceiling to run perpendicular, just like plywood runs perpendicularly, preferably to our studs or to our floor joists. Same thing here. We want to attach them with wires and connectors to our joists. First step for any math where we're dealing with imperial is turning our feet and inches into something a little bit more friendly. To me, that's just inches. So 17 times 12 plus 6 inches gets us 210 inches. Oopsie, 210 inches in the long dimension. And for our short dimension, 12 times 12 is 144 plus 3 is 147. There we go. Now, another good thing to note is that um, our T-bar ceiling itself, the pieces are usually 2 by 2 feet or 2 by 4 feet, and almost always, except unless it's they specifically tell you that we have the 2 foot dimension along the main T, and they're going to look like this, right? 2 feet here and 4 feet across. This really is the most important and maybe trickiest to wrap your head around, just so that you can be sure of what you're trying to calculate. So you use the right numbers. So when we say calculate the size of the border tiles, we want to find the dimension of the tiles around the borders. The idea is that we always have a minimum of 50%, so minimum half a tile left over. So if the tile are 2 by 4 feet on the 2 foot direction, we don't want to end up with 5 inches on the end. It just looks real stupid. So we always want to end up with more than half. It just makes it look really nice and even. And the ceiling tile that we're actually trying to find, um, the border in both directions, we can draw that down in here. That's this guy. So we want to find this dimension from here to here, and we want to find this dimension from here to here. And then they can be cut accordingly, and then it'll look really nice. Okay, so we've got our feet turned into inches. We know what we're trying to find out. And just to draw it in, the tiles themselves will look like this, right? And I'll draw it a little bit bigger here, just so it's easier to see. We have 4 feet or 48 inches in this direction. Oops, see what happened. And we've got 24 inches in this direction. So that's important to note. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So we want to find the border tile dimension. In the 210-inch direction. So that is the long way of the room. So what do? Well, we take the length of our room, 210 inches, and we divide it by the width of our panel, which is the 24 inches. That will tell us how many panels we're going to be able to put in there. So 210 divided by 24, always pull out your calculator for these kinds of videos so you can do it as well. And that gets us to 8.75. Now that's 8.75 tiles. What we want to do here is, because we want to end up with more than half of a panel at the end, we want to take away the partial amount here and one full panel, right? For example, if we said, okay, we have 8 full panels and we have 3/4 of a panel left over, if we divided that in half, because, well, we have a border tile here and a border tile there, we'd only end up with 3/8 of a panel. And that's not going to look nice. So we want to keep more than one. So really, we want to end up with 7 full tiles here, because 8.75 minus 1.75, whoopsie, 1.75 gets us 7 tiles. And what that means is that we have 1.75 tiles left over. Now, if you imagine dividing 1.75 by 2, it's going to be more than half, right? And that's the idea here. So that's exactly what we're going to do. 1.75 tiles divided by 2, because we have a border tile on each side. And we want to multiply again by 24 here, because the full tile is 24 inches wide. If we only divided 1.75 tiles by 2, we would come out with 0.875 of a tile. Well, we still need to multiply it by 24 to find out how many inches that actually is. So punch that into your calculator. 1.75 divided by 2 times 24, and that gets us 21 inches. So that means down here, we just did the direction of the 210-inch direction here of the long way. That means this ceiling tile down here, that is the 21 inches. And the one up here that sits here is also 21 inches. And that means that all the ones in between are going to be full tiles, and just the end ones are 21 inches. And it checks out because they're 24 inches total, and they have to be bigger than half. And 21 inches is certainly bigger than half. Okay, so now let's go check it out in the other direction. So border tile, we're still on that. And we always want to mark out what the heck we're doing in the 147-inch dimension. So now we're working within the smaller dimension of the room. So we're taking 147 inches. And now what do we need to divide it by? Well, 48, right? Because the tile itself, they go 48 inches or 4 feet in the direction of the short dimension of the room. So that's why I said you really have to figure out in which way the tiles sit so that you can use the right number when you do your first calculation. So punching that into the calculator, 147 divided by 48 is 3.0625, which is 3.0625 tiles. So we want to keep what's left and still keep a full one. So that means we're going to keep 2 full tiles. Let's see what we have left over. 3.0625 minus 2 full tiles. Well, leaves us with 1.0625. So we're just over 1, right? But because of the extra 0.0625, once we divide it in half, our ceiling tile will still be just over half the total width, which is exactly what we're looking for. So from here, 1.0625 leftover tiles divided by 2 because we going to have a border tile on each side. And because the tiles themselves are 48 inches long, we need to multiply by 48 again, because 1.0625 divided by 2 gets us 0.53 and change of a tile. And then we need to multiply it by 48 to find out how many inches that actually is. And that comes out with 25.5 inches. So that means this dimension down here, this right here is 25.5 inches. And same up here, 25.5 inches. And in a rectangular room like this, really you're going to have the same border tiles. They run the whole way around on the outside of a room. So we can cut them all up, measure them all out, and then go for it. And really, this is the gist and the main idea behind this. Of course, they can be more complicated questions. You can have more complicated layouts, but this is what you want to find out. You always want to turn your dimensions into just inches to make it easier to work with. You want to be really clear in which directions the joists go if you're told, or at least find out in which direction the main T's go. And then from there, you can decide which way your ceiling tiles are going to sit. And you might be even given a drawing that you can look at and then say, okay, this is 2 feet, this is 4 feet. From there, we take the length of our room in inches divided by the width of our ceiling tile to find out how many tiles we get. And we always want to have more than 1 tile left over. So we have our leftover of 0.75, and we want to have 1 full one additionally, which means we have 7 full tiles, which leaves us with 1.75 leftover tiles that we can then divide by 2 to find out how much of a tile we have left for that border. And then we need to multiply it by the actual width in inches of the full panel to then get the inches amount, right? Just as when we do conversions, you do the same thing. And then you just do that in both directions. And bada bing, bada boom, there you are. And often you'll have questions for whether it's ceiling tiles or panels or tiles, and they give you a lot of words and a lot of extra information. That's why making a drawing, if it's not given to you, is so important so you can extract what's actually important. And you can leave all the rest of whatever confusing words they're trying to throw at you, just leave them aside and not deal with them because they're just there to make it a little bit more difficult. So I hope that helps.